August, but in places like Minneapolis, Dearborn, Michigan, Philadelphia, Plano, New York, there have been massive demonstrations, militant gatherings, streets blocked off with loudspeakers for Muslim prayer. Loudspeakers blast the call to prayer from pre-dawn hours and throughout the rest of the day, even when such activity is against the municipal noise ordinances. Those cities I just mentioned are famous American cities, some of which have major significance in our nation's history. But there are many other Islamic enclaves developing across the country in places like Florida, California, Washington, D.C. You haven't heard how both the inmate and guard populations in the D.C. prison is majority Muslim? The observation is, admittedly, anecdotal, but it comes from the inside. And that's the kind of scuttlebutt you miss when you don't befriend your local January 6ther. At any rate, the idea that even our nation's capital is becoming this place where we have an Islamic hotbed is cause for alarm, because we aren't just talking about a religious affiliation. These cities allowing mosques to violate noise ordinances is a good example of the mindset of a faith that believes Muslims and non-Muslims must live according to different laws. We have seen that radical Islam is not a faith that imposes certain restrictions like fasting and halal food on its adherents alone. It also requires Muslims to treat non-Muslims in ways that are quite harsh. In a Muslim-majority society, any non-Muslim, be they Christian, Jew, Hindu, Buddhist, atheist, is by law a second-class citizen. For example, in radical Islam, you are still allowed to own slaves, so long as they are not Muslim. That was a big deal the last time Islam started conquering Europe, because captured Christians were enticed to convert to Islam in order to purchase their freedom. That freedom, however, is only a matter of speaking. You see, the Western idea of freedom is in many ways antithetical to radical Islam. The systems of freedom and democracy developed by the Christian West are not considered ideal in Islam. Sharia law is completely diametrically opposed to Western civilization. Sharia law perceives itself as a kind of divine law and therefore superior to man-made laws. Like our Constitution, for example, much of the concern about the establishment of Sharia law enclaves in the West centers around the creation of certain areas where American laws are abrogated in favor of Sharia law. Laws that require women's heads to be constantly covered or to wear a burqa. Laws that require non-Muslims to pay the local mosque a tax. Laws that ban the sale of alcohol and pork. And it's not a secret that both abrogating and expanding the territory where Western Christian ideals aren't allowed is also part of the plan. In the US, in Germany, and in the UK, plans to replace the native populations of those countries are tied directly to plans to replace Western forms of law and rights with Sharia law. It's the concept of personnel is policy on a civic scale. Today, we non-Muslims can pass any laws we want, banning the implementation of Sharia law. But if we become a voting minority in a decade or two, such laws will simply be removed by the majority Muslim populace. That replacement is being plotted through two vectors. One is mass migration, legal or illegal. There are many examples of the intersection between growing migrant populations and the promotion of anti-democratic, anti-Christian, anti-Western policies and the politicians who push them. Politicians like Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Zoran Mamdani are proof that this strategy is being carried out before our very eyes. The other replacement vector is birth rate. When divided up by religion, there's evidence to support the idea that Muslims have a higher birth rate than people of other faiths. One Islamic scholar in Sweden claims that Muslim women have as many as 7 children per family on average, and will thus overtake the native Swedish population in roughly 10 years. Last week, Dinesh did a really good interview series with son of Hamas, former Palestinian militant Mossab Hassan Youssef, In that interview, Youssef pointed out that currently Muslims account for approximately 25% of the global population. This is a number that has been steadily increasing, according to Pew, and the largest world religion currently, which is Christianity, only stands a few percentage points away at roughly 31% of the global population. But as Youssef said, you don't need a majority to run things, and even a local population of only 10% can have an enormous impact.
I know a thing or two about being targeted by the government, but hey, don't give them a reason to target you. Owing the IRS back taxes? Well, that's a good way to get targeted. Are your tax returns still unfiled? Did you forget to file for an extension? The October 15th deadline is fast approaching. Time is running out. So if you haven't gathered all your documents or made any estimated payments, you could soon be targeted by the IRS. Not good. They can garnish your wages, freeze your bank accounts, even seize your property. They have a lot of power. But there is help available. Tax Network USA. This is a nationwide tax firm. They have helped taxpayers save over $1 billion in tax debt. They've filed hundreds of thousands of tax returns. They've assisted thousands in reducing their tax burdens, and they can help you too. So don't despair and don't wait. Visit TN, this is Tax Network, tnusa.com/Dinesh, or you can call 800-958-1000. You get a 100% free consultation. In one short call, the experts at Tax Network USA will guide you through some simple questions to determine how much you can save. Take action now before it's too late. Call 1-800-958-1000 or go to tnusa.com/Dinesh.